Hey, Tokenmetics family, welcome back to the 100X show. And we have the pleasure of being joined by the Blockless team, a project that Tokenmetics Ventures is glad to be an investor in. Welcome to the show. We have Butian and also Derek. How are you guys?
Hi, good to be here.
All right, so Blockless is one of those projects that's really trying to innovate in the Web3 space when it comes to infrastructure. Initially, for me, the project was very, very tough to grasp. So could you guys kind of tell us what inspired you and what the background is for Blockless?
Sure, I'm happy to start. So the problem that we've seen being both founders and also investors and as well as builders in the space is that at first when Bitcoin becomes really popular, it enables this power shift, right? It empowers the individuals. So that's really what the Web3 all stands for. It's the world of decentralization that echoes the ethos of democratized power. However, we've seen the reality of Web3 today is that, those critical infrastructures are controlled and owned by centralized parties, authorities, those privileged fews. And it's really far from what the whole Web3 and the movement for decentralization, where it originates. So we realized that in order to change that, we really need more powerful decentralized infrastructure that extend the tech stack beyond the blockchain itself. So that's really where my team, including myself, really see where we need in this decentralized world. It's about empowering the community with the underlying infrastructure.
Wow, pretty interesting. So, and how about you, Derek? Anything you want to chime in with regarding that?
Yeah, really, I think Woodian really covered most of all of our, visionary concerns, but really empowering the next generation of Web3 builders. So I think we're really kind of early, what I like to call Web 3.1, and we're really working on like Web 3.2, the next version of what Web3 should be.
So what's been your background prior to crypto? How'd you guys meet? How'd the whole team get together? What's the team's history?
Sure, yeah. So a bit background about myself. I was an engineer by training, went to Berkeley for undergrad, known blockchain even pre-crypto, but really got into crypto back in 2017 when I started the first project, Wabi, building global supply chain solution on the blockchain. And I was the COO, heading the entire global operations. And we went through the ICO craze when that's also where I first knew Ian and went through the, that listed on those prominent exchanges, quite a ride over there. And then I also was personally an investor and been scouting for Lightspeed and GC Ventures for crypto deals when I was in school, and also helped launching and operating a Web3 crypto-focused hedge fund. So my expertise really lies in the intersection of commercialization of innovative technologies, really taking those technical innovation to a viable business model and to scale from there.
Yeah, and myself, I've got a typical background in engineering in a regular story. So I've been doing the engineering for over 20 years, 25 years. I had a chance to do the Silicon Valley tour. I worked for some companies such as PayPal, eBay, Walmart, LG Electronics, and really always centered around infrastructure. And I had started dabbling with Bitcoin in 2014 and really I've got my little Bitcoin miners, my ASICs, looked at the source code. But at the time I was working in traditional finance. So I really didn't see a big use for it. We hadn't kind of gotten to this community monetization structure that's really like hitting a good stride right now. So I kind of put it away. Fast forward a few years later, I've been living in Silicon Valley. I'm a Foothills guy, South Foothills, if anybody knows that location. Michael Chen on our team is a Foothills resident as well. But really, I got into Akash, started going full time into crypto, relocated out of the Bay, and then just hit it full time. couple years at Akash.network, I was really kind of seeing a different vision for what that would be. And that's when I really started talking to my friends, and the rest of the team kind of started forming together around what we see as Blockless being kind of that next version. During my time at Akash Network, really kind of started seeing the need for a new type of infrastructure, and really started kind of chasing that, talking to Mike, and then the rest of the team really started forming around the ideals that we kind of all had.
Yeah, Michael is our co-founder, and he's leading the strategy of Blockless. And previously, he was a researcher at Binance, really the back office for the listing department, doing all sorts of crazy due diligence, deep tech dives into like the nitty and gritties. So he wrote and published over 500 research paper on token projects.
Wow, lots of research. That's incredible. All right, so I'm actually going to pull up the website here on my screen. So kind of walk us through this, right? So imagine somebody's brand new to crypto, and let's say they're a developer. So here on the site, it says basically Blockless, you can launch your product on a decentralized global network. Blockless is a WASM-based verifiable serverless platform. What does that exactly mean to a developer or even to a non-technical person?
So here's our dashboard product. This is the UI that a engineer will kind of see. So you had kind of, in your question, what is a WASM verifiable serverless platform? So for an end developer, the magic that Blockless is trying to instill is that there's nothing different than what they might be used to in Web 2. And so our dashboard is pretty clean and is here to actually help accelerate what a web developer would need, or a service developer would need to do to interact with the rest of the Web3 community. We do have an API then that's kind of underneath this. And the WASM portion is really what means to be the build target for a developer. So typically when a developer is creating an application, they have to choose a language and they have to choose an architecture. But the WASM portion of this really kind of abstracts that away, and it allows all of our node operators then to participate in this same ecosystem without the developers using a special language. Like you might be familiar with language terms like Solidity as an example, which is commonly used in the Ethereum network. And instead of using a specialized language, you can use regular languages that a developer's used to: Python, JavaScript, C, and then they can come to this dashboard here and use this dashboard to actually launch the product. And so once they do that, we actually have a number of services that are then built around onboarding a P2P network that is running in the background that you can't see right now, and actually accessing that using traditional methods. So this would be what we call the web gateway. As an example, you can actually download this from our GitHub and you can run this on your own. You don't have to use Blockless Network. But if you use the Blockless service, then there's a bunch of nice built-in things around it. And so this is a simple hello world, and all it says is it's hello world, this code. It's just a very small snippet that's been built on GitHub, pushed into the cloud, or the IPFS, the decentralized cloud, and then our decentralized node network is executing that on request. So really for a developer, we don't want them to have to think about this. And that's kind of the magic that we see is missing currently. You can write really good backends using smart contract languages, and you can write some front ends and maybe put them on a storage chain like Storage or Arweave. But really in the middle, there's an entire layer of services that haven't been distributed correctly.
Yeah, and I also want to chime in to share that, Blockless, we're not really a blockchain. We serve specifically heavy computations that cannot run on chain. So that's why we are a community first decentralized infrastructure, but without the ledger or chain, by providing verifiable compute solution through our featured ZK serverless framework. And we also have a verifiable compute engine. So that really covers pretty much all the need that any developers would look for solutions to build really advanced decentralized applications.
So could you say, in a way, basically Blockless is a Web3 SDK for developers or computing platform?
I'd say like Blockless is SDK, and also we have graphic UIs where developers, they just develop like the natural way they would do in even the Web2 world. And
it is a full suite of tools. Yep, encompassing a cloud developers kit, a UI management console, and also a CLI flow tool as well. So developers can bring this into their local development workflow, and they can use any CI/CD such as the Jenkins or a Hudson or anything that they're familiar with, GitHub Actions today, to actually drive a lot of their workflow. So we've got the entire gamut covered, and this is currently just in the developer experience realm, but we're also chasing after the operator vertical as well, and developing a suite of tools for node operators and people to actually launch their infrastructure themselves.
Okay, makes sense. Now, what does the market look like, and how's the competition, and how are you guys different from what's out there currently?
Yeah, I think that's a big question. I'll unpack it first, address the market these days. We mentioned about this critical infrastructure that are in the hands of those centralized authorities, and a few that, we really lose the flair of individual empowerment, right? So some of those problems that are like things that we can solve by giving community transparency, control, and ownership of those infrastructure to make it truly decentralized, that is trustless and verifiable. So, this is like the decentralized verifiable compute space we were talking about. By last fiscal year, we are looking at a $30 billion market size for decentralized verifiable compute. So really, to put things in perspective, AWS, which is the centralized counterpart, they own 30% of the centralized compute space, and they are valued at 1.5 trillion. So you see the difference, where decentralized verifiable compute is just a tiny negligible fraction of the centralized compute market, right? So this is really, at least an 100x growth opportunity we're looking at for this verifiable compute powered by the community. So in this space, if we really believe that an open web or Web3 is the future, then the reality today on the critical infrastructure that's centrally owned is going to change. And that's exactly what we are empowering the community to provide, their spare hardwares to provide better than centralized compute solutions that is cheaper, and it's censorship resilient and non-custodial. So really giving access and sovereignty for projects, applications in the open web or the digital world. That's like where we are addressing. So I will pass on to Derek to talk about some of the our frenemies that are operating in the same space.
Yeah, I would say we're competing with everybody and nobody. And so we're playing a really interesting game where the capabilities of the Blockless network are both generic enough and specific enough that we actually end up kind of having an offering against a very large number. And you can just throw a Web3 infrastructure name out there, and chances are Blockless has some kind of comparative offering within our network. But the one thing that really makes Blockless really unique and super positioned for the Web3 developer is that we are interop, we're open, and we follow specs. And so you can build on the Blockless network and interop almost anywhere that you're using these same technologies, including the other networks. And so really, we're building bridges and SDK APIs and opportunities for developers to do cross-chain L1s, cross-network compute layers and storage networks. We really don't want to say that we are here to build in silo and a sandbox, because that's not how Web3 works. But we are here to make sure that the vision is carried out and the developer experience is second to none.
Yeah, when it comes to really competitors in this space, I'd say the way that we are trying to address the blockchain scalability issue is similar to how other ZK VMs or ZK EVMs and rollups are currently doing. However, there's a slight nuance to this. So comparing to traditional like ZK VM, Blockless, we stand out in providing not only the machine, but also the service that comes with the machine, where we save developers trouble to build everything from scratch, which traditionally could take, a team of 10 engineers with domain expertise. Now with blockless serverless functions, one engineer can do what 10 engineers is able to accomplish over a course of a year of time, and really shrink the development effort to a matter of days. And also we are WASM based, meaning that it's language agnostic. So we not only support Solidity, but also, Rust, Python, JavaScript, those Web2 developer-friendly languages to really remove the entry barrier. Yeah, and I'd say comparing to Rollup, we are chain agnostic. So we currently connect to 8 chains, and this will go even in terms of the other chains integration, we will continue to integrate more chains. And also, the execution you run on Blockless, it read from the data availability layer. So for the Blockless execution, it is block state agnostic.
All right. So let me just so on your website, you have lots of different use cases. I kind of want to pull that up and kind of go through the different use cases available for Blockless for those who are curious. So as you mentioned, you guys cover infrastructure, DeFi, SocialFi, game. So it looks like this entire platform and tool set can be used from everything from oracles to cron jobs to streaming, indexing. Can you maybe kind of just touch on these different use cases?
Sure. Yeah. So these days, we've seen most of the tractions of applications. They're in a few verticals. One is DeFi or refi, SocialFi, those has to do with data. And the other one is games and AI, which is like the buzzword right now. We don't really have the bandwidth to serve today, but it's also another vertical that we've seen are in need of decentralized, cheaper, compute power in the future that we can go after. So I can share a couple of cool projects that we've seen builders are currently up to. In the DeFi space, we support, as Ian, you mentioned, that Oracle. So any programmable, data needs that is from the outside of Ledger. So say, for example, we support someone who's building pricing in the risk model and incorporating that into their structured financial product offerings. So that's a kind of use case that vary both Oracle and some of those advanced calculations, but do so in a verifiable way. Kind of instead of running it over a black box. Now you have transparency to how those assets are priced in and offered on a decentralized DeFi platform. Yeah, game is like one interesting field that we support by empowering the community to run and own their own servers, not only Web3 native games, but also Web2 mods games as well, so that the community are actually powering their game servers and are actually getting paid in those game tokens. So not only blockless tokens.
Fascinating. Now, I find it pretty interesting that you're doing some work with Arpa. Arpa is actually a project we've covered before on the channel, and we're pretty big fans of it. Could you speak on what Arpa is using Blockless for?
Yeah, so Arpa is an interesting use case that leverages the multi-party computation technology. Basically, we generate random numbers or do the compute that requires multiple entities or agents, computing agents, that they agree upon things without revealing their private information. So just to give you an example, actually like zero knowledge proof technology is just one subset of the multi-party compute. Yeah.
Okay, great. So now talk to us about users and traction. How are you guys testing or checking to make sure this is something people actually want to use in terms of developers, and what's been the current growth in the project?
Derek, do you want to talk to this question?
Yeah, for sure. So, in terms of developer user validation, really it's a lot of networking and market strategy. So we are, I think, probably one of the few Web3 companies that are actually out campaigning in the Web2 world. We're approaching traditional developer experiences where, bringing the product to the consumer and really trying to figure out what it is that the developer really needs. And so we're meeting customers that have a wide variety of needs that aren't even probably currently being tackled in the Web3 realm. And we're really kind of focusing on a lot of those type of needs to fill. And this could be anything ranging from needing specific node-based topology that we're able to offer with our subnetting and our INO offering, to also requiring specific attributed-based hardware that they can run multiple nodes, and these nodes then are segmented based on the capabilities of the compute infrastructure, and then being able to take advantage of those. And these are things that we probably, wouldn't have even thought about developing for, especially when we're doing like a Web3 technology, without being in the market and finding what the developers are actually missing currently.
So we launched the public testnet, I think now it's 5 weeks ago. And since then, we've seen over 150 developers onboarded to use our network and our suite of solutions. And we're currently supporting 80 projects that are building in DeFi, Metaverse, social, and refi space. Oh, we also have an AI client as well. Yeah, all those are through organic growth. And through that, we try to service the vast majority of developers and also projects through our self-servicing capability. We try to be as comprehensive as possible, but at the same time, as an early project, we first try to release solutions that are most likely used by the vast Web3 community. So some of those common use cases, as Ian, you've probably seen on the website as well, are Oracle indexing MPC solutions for automation, triggers, and also decentralized dynamic front end. So those are some of our start off-the-shelf solutions where developers can just grab those templates that are ready to go. They simply need to change some parameters and to make it custom built for their own application needs.
So how does a developer using Blockless leverage ZK? My understanding is basically anybody can use Blockless to add ZK to their protocol in an easy manner?
Yes, that's the idea. So, when the execution or computing happens on a decentralized, trustless network, right? In order to guarantee the security or the correctness of the results, we provide pluggable optional ZK and local consensus modules where developers can pick and choose whichever is more suitable for their application need. So by choosing the ZK module, developers can easily incorporate the zero-knowledge proof solution to their application to make it ZK enabled. To give you an example, we are supporting some of the builders in using our refi Oracle. They execute certain tasks off-chain and at the same time submit a zero-knowledge proof together with the result to a layer one, for example, Ethereum. And then the on-chain ZK verifier will validate that is the correct proof, and therefore the execution is correct and trustworthy. And the result is used by the ledger via the smart contract.
That's pretty cool. ZK in one click, as it says here.
Yes, so we currently launched on some of the EVMs, Ethereum, of course, and we try to expand the supported chains by launching the ZK verifier on the layer one. yeah, currently we are working with Celestia, BNB chain. Those are the official partnerships that we're focusing on for this quarter.
Now, could you speak on the business model? Because I understand you're both a Web3 company, also targeting Web2 clients. So how does the business model work? And is there a potential token, or is it purely a SaaS type model?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a hybrid. So for developers or project users, the business model is very similar to a traditional SaaS model, where users pay by usage per million invocation, starting from free tier. We also add in the staking BLS token for discounted service or privileged premium tier services. Because the network is powered by Node, right? Those comes from the community. So node operators, they bear the cost of their hardware bandwidth, and in return, they get paid in blockless tokens. And we mentioned a little bit about the initial node offering. It's a mechanism where the node operators are not only paid in the BLS token, but also other tokens as well for providing service of running the other project's infrastructure. And how the math works altogether is kind of like either calling it the Uber or Airbnb model, right? So it's just instead of the centralized platform provider taking the profit, we get rid of that central agent by allowing this peer-to-peer network model where the node operator directly receive the profit. So 80% of the revenue goes directly to node operators as service reward. 10% will be used to return value capture to token holders as well. And then the rest 10% is used for funding the rest of the development.
Okay, and when's that initial node offering happening?
Yeah, it's a go-to-market approach that we will introduce a bit later. We are currently working with a few Launchpad and also NFT platforms to make it happen. And this is currently not live yet. Yeah.
Okay, pretty cool. Now, speaking of go-to-market, any other go-to-market strategies you have for Blockless you'd like to share?
Yeah, so and I can speak about the Web3 space, and then maybe Derek, if you want to chime in for the Web2 part of the open source community. So we go to market first by leveraging the layer one ecosystems relationship. So as we mentioned earlier, there are the official partners that we provide the ZK solution to further scale and expand their on-chain throughput. And by providing a better developer experience, like more builders can launch their application faster. We currently establish partner relationships with VChain, Celo, and Eigenlayer Protocol Labs. And we also sell directly to projects. So currently there are games, SocialFi, DAO projects, and also and a few other categories that are utilizing our platform really to benefit from this cheaper but more robust decentralized infrastructure. And we also have a lot of indie developers that are using the platform. So we serve the end users through our self-servicing capability through direct conversions.
Yeah, no, for sure. So as I had mentioned earlier in the podcast, we are looking at different ways that we can actually get our technology into projects as well. So when we look at the Web2 space, we're really also focused on making sure that our open source offerings are on-prem or self-custodial ready. And really, we do envision, a future where Web2 projects, they really kind of are used to a specific infrastructure model. And we want to provide and meet them there, as well as be able to put the blockless technology directly into those products and potentially find a different way to produce revenue than just generating crypto coin or looking for hosting strategies. We really do see that what we're building here at Blockless really lives beyond just the internet and services.
Now, could you share who the early investors were? Obviously, as I mentioned before, Token Metrics Ventures was also an early investor, but who else the other early investors that have backed Blockless as a company?
Yeah, so we currently only went through an angel round, and we are backed by a lot of really technical angels and some other VCs, including Pars One, NGC Ventures, PokerStarter, Elbens, Block Builders. Like the idea is really we want to be a community-centric infrastructure, and by pulling the resources and the support from the community. That's why we don't have one prominent VC that's heavily backing us, but more like a community play.
That makes sense. Now, what are the risks involved? Obviously, in crypto regulation risks, but what are the other risks involved in terms of building a Web3 protocol or platform or SDK and trying to get Web2 developers on board? What are some challenges you guys foresee, and how do you plan to handle them?
So some of the challenges directly are on adoption. Just pointedly, we look at metrics across the industry and not just Web3 and not just Web2. We are dealing with a brand new technology, WASM, as we've kind of mentioned a few times. And just like smart contract languages kind of have a barrier to entry, WASM also has a barrier to entry. And then the barrier to entry across the plethora of services. So I think we're probably past 300 or so in production crypto or Web3 based service offerings that somebody could connect, adapt to, and really getting all of those to play in a nice homogeneous ecosystem so that engineers don't get fatigue, especially the indie developers who are doing all the creative collateral, the architecture, the planning, and then the coding as well. And so on that side of users, the supply adoption is really getting people to be able to build rapidly, quickly, and make sure everything is also stable, performant, and that they get the best experience possible, just like they do in Web 2. You get a lot of good benefits when you build on GCP or AWS, and we really want to see the same thing happen in like the blockless paradigm as well, which is why we've designed our network the way it works. And then on the other side is operator, because we also need the supply. And one of the biggest plays that Blockless is really driving for, as Bootian has mentioned, is community-based networks. And we really feel, and when we say community-based networks, just to make sure we're clear, we're not talking about the Blockless community. We're talking about your community. So any of you indie developers or your engineering houses that are watching this now, we're really talking about empowering you to have your own communities run the infrastructure for the projects they love. And we really see that that's going to be the way forward, is projects that have garnered the support should then therefore get their community infrastructure.
All right, well said. Well, it's definitely been a pleasure. Any last words, anything else you guys would like to share about Blockless and how people can learn more about the company and project?
Sure, yeah. So for any builders out there, feel free to just visit our website. I think we can include that in the show notes, right? And for anyone that might, okay, great. So for anyone that's interested in becoming a node operator, feel free to also register your interest in the form that we will attach later in the show notes.
All right, sounds great. Well, it's definitely been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on to the 100X show, Butian and Derek. It's a pleasure. And definitely very intrigued to learn more about Blockless as you guys try to make Web3 development more available to all kinds of developers globally. Thank you, and take care, everybody.
Thank you, Ian, for having me.
Thank you so much. It was a great time.